But I always thought if Jim Bellows had been the editor had that orchestra to play, it would be truly a different paper, and this would be a different town. Because the LA Times, it's been 27 years, it's the criminal. The reason LA is a broken city is not because of the cheap for life status that we broke finally. It's not because of the insular political culture. It's because the greatest mass communication institution has failed in its responsibilities as a newspaper. And that's criminal in my mind. I work in a small paper out in the valley, and I'm more famous politically than anyone at the LA Times. What does that tell you about this institution that has vast resources, and whether it cares a damn about this town? Jim cared about the town, the Herald cared about the town. We fought for something better. It was the license you had was to tell the Eula love story, to try to get at the truth. That's what this is about, is the truth.
Well, Ron, I think what you're saying is exactly what I felt, is we had that license to tell that story. I'd have so many LA Times reporters come up to me at conventions, because they had so many people at conventions, they had 50 of them, and they never talked to each other, who would leak me stories that they got tips on because they couldn't get through to their own editor to tell them to get the story out about David Roberti and the abortion protest, or the inside that was going on. Really. Because you couldn't get the story through the Times bureaucracy. Well, so like you said, tell the truth, and we had 3 or 4 of us, so we talked all the time. Remember Wanda, you and I in the hotel room in Detroit?
Don, you're the Times
one. Give her the hook.
It's not a night to debate the merits.
Flog the way. Merle Llewellyn, stand up, please. Now, if you don't know Merle, she is an amazing lady. You may remember that she wrote a series where she went undercover as a garment worker in Los Angeles and wrote a multi-part series about it that was a serious Pulitzer contender and won just about every other award of merit and note that particular season. Merle has gone on to have an interesting career. I ran into her 10 years ago in Hong Kong, where she continues to live. And Merle, just remind us when you were at the Herald, and you got to tell us why you're in Hong Kong, and then share a quick story with us, will you?
Yes, I'd be happy.
Can everybody hear without the mic or not?
I'm losing my voice, but can you hear
Merle, then come up here. Let me hand you the mic.
Mike. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Can everybody hear? Yes. I'm Merle Llewellyn, and I was at the Herald from October 4th, 1979 to, I think it was March or June of 87. So I had a good few years there, and I will say without hesitation that they were the best, most productive, most stimulating, rewarding years of my professional life, without any question, no doubt, nothing came close. After the Herald Examiner, I went to the Wall Street Journal, where I was the national correspondent. After that, I went briefly to the New York Times. They didn't offer me the job that I really wanted, which the Hearst newspapers did, and I then went to Latin America for the Hearst newspapers, resurrecting the flag of Hearst again in Latin America after the disaster of, what was it called in the 1890s? What was the, it was the Spanish-American War, but what was the brouhaha
The Maine, the ship the Maine was...
Yes, that's right, sink the Maine. So I want to join the salute to Jim Bellows and to Mary Ann and to the other people that set the tone and led the Herald Examiner in those crucial years. I felt that before I met Jim Bellows and went to the Herald Examiner, I first met Frank Lawley, and he tried to persuade me. I had been offered a job at People magazine. He said, "Don't go to People magazine. You know, you'll be lost. You'll be a cog in in the wheel come to the Herald Examiner. He arranged an interview with Jim Bellows. I was so nervous and in that interview, and I couldn't really understand what this man was saying to me. He was like mumbling from behind, he was across a very long desk, but I was saying that I wanted to cover Spanish-speaking Los Angeles. And this is 1979. There was no one covering Spanish-speaking Los Angeles. The Herald had one reporter who did speak Spanish, Tony Castro, but the last thing that he wanted to cover was Spanish-speaking Los Angeles. That was absolutely the last. So of course it makes perfect sense. Why not hire a Jewish girl from Wyoming? And so he said, well, we can't offer you much money. And this was the secret to Jim Bellows. He knew what he was doing. We can't offer you much money, but you can do whatever you want. You can cover Spanish-speaking Los Angeles. We know nothing about it. We know that it's a huge community. It's growing. It's mostly under the radar. Come join us. And I said, and then he said again, we can't offer you much money. And it really wasn't much money. It was no joke. But I said, well, it couldn't be worse than what I was doing, which was freelancing out of my little hovel in Berkeley, really living la vie boheme. So I joined the Herald Examiner, and then I remember that when I first came, I had never, in those days, I know it seems like about 100 years ago, but I had never written on a computer. I'd always written my stories on my little Remington typewriter. And Alex showed me how to use the computer in the first few days. And I remember that Frank Lawley got me started on the police beat. But so I was like, they said, go out, do whatever you want to do. Frank said, and then just come back. We'll see you in about a week and a half, and then you tell us what stories we should be writing. Can you imagine the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times giving any reporter that kind of leeway? Just like say, see you. So I came back. I told Frank what the story was. He conveyed that to Marianne and to Jim. They said, fine, have her do it. And then I was supposed to write it in the office. So I sat down, and this one, so nice to see you. She said, here, well, I'll help you. I said, I've never written on a computer before. She said, oh, not a problem. Just start the story and I'll help you. So I'm sitting back there and I just couldn't do it. I just froze. It's like I must have started at 10 in the morning. And she kept coming up to me well, where is it? Where's your lead? Come on, let's get this thing going. This is a daily newspaper. Come on. I went, I just couldn't do it. So I thought, would this woman please, I don't even know who she is, but just leave, I need some peace. She's breathing down my neck. It's easy. These computers are just easy. Just start it. Well, to skip the boring middle and get to the end, Frank comes up at 5:30 and there's nothing on the screen. He goes, I see you're having a very productive day. He said, you know what? I think this is really too much to ask. It's a new city. It's a new medium. It's we're all new people to you. I think you should go home and you write this as you normally would. You write it on your typewriter. Let's first get you into the paper and let's get it started. Now, do you think that there are many editors that have that kind of sensitivity to the hypersensitivities of we writers? Not too many. I went home, I knocked it out on my Remington, I brought it back, and he read it and he put A++ on the top. Yes. Because I really thought maybe I don't have a career, maybe I'm not a journalist, I can't do this. And, it's I had major panic about whether or not I was going to be able to do it. It went in the paper, it was above the fold, I was over the moon, and I was part of the Herald Examiner. I have never met so many talented, creative, ornery, eccentric. I remember Joseph Giovannini coming into the office. He would stroll in about 2, which, made me look like an early bird, and wearing his pajamas. And this guy, he knew architecture like nobody's business.